Namaste, dosto, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that has totally changed how millions of people work with their business software, SAP Fiori. We're going to break it all down and turn something that seems pretty complex into something that's actually easy to understand.
All right, just take a look at this. Does this feel a little too familiar? For years, super powerful systems like SAP were known for interfaces just like this one. I mean, they could do anything for sure, but they were also, well, chaotic. It's kind of like being handed the control panel to a spaceship when all you really need to do is just turn on the lights. So here's what the problem really was. You had one single, massive, complicated screen that was supposed to work for a bunch of different people with different jobs. Just imagine, a manager, a clerk, and an analyst all trying to use the exact same confusing form. Everyone had to click through stuff they didn't need just to do their one specific thing.
Yeah, that was the old way, the functional-based way. One giant transaction for everybody, with all these different, confusing ways to get in. तो इसका solution क्या है? Well, the new way is all about being role-based. It takes those huge transactions and breaks them down into simple little apps for each specific person's role. And you can get to all of them from one single central place.
And this picture shows the solution perfectly. SAP Fiori. Think about it like this. The old way was like a massive, cluttered warehouse where you had to hunt for one specific little thing. Fiori is like your personal shopping app. It only shows you what you're actually interested in, which makes the whole thing so much simpler and, well, just easier to use. It just breaks down those big, clunky transactions into small, easy-to-use apps made just for you. Okay, so we get what it does, but how does it actually pull it off? Let's take a quick peek under the hood. And don't worry, I promise, we're going to keep it simple. You know, the magic behind Fiori is really its two-layer architecture. First, you've got the front-end server. That's everything you see and touch on your screen. Then, in the back, you have the back-end server, which is basically the brains of the whole operation. That's where all the business rules and the data live. And separating these two is the secret sauce to Fiori's flexibility. So, how do these two layers actually talk to each other? Well, they use this special messenger called Odata, which stands for Open Data Protocol. Just think of Odata as the super efficient translator that carries your requests from the screen to the system's brain and brings back exactly the data you need, super fast and super secure. It's the glue that holds this whole thing together. So, how do all these technical bits and pieces actually come together into something you can use? Let's look at the building blocks you actually see on your screen. We're talking about the tiles, the apps, and of course, the data. Your main home screen in Fiori is called the Launchpad. It's made up of a few key things. You've got tiles, which are basically the icons for your apps, and sometimes they even show you live info, which is cool. These tiles are then organized into groups for specific jobs or tasks. And finally, all the apps you're allowed to use are kept in a catalog. It's kind of like your own personal company-approved app store. And what can you actually do with these apps? Well, they pretty much fall into three main types. Transactional apps are for getting stuff done, like creating an order or approving a request. Then you have analytical apps, which give you live reports with cool charts and graphs. And finally, fact sheet apps, which give you a complete 360-degree view of something important, like a customer or a product. And here's a great real-world example. This tile right here is for a transactional app. Display supplier invoice. It's one clear task, there's no clutter, there's no confusion. You click it, and you do exactly what it says on the tin. That is the Fiori philosophy right there in action. Okay, quick one for all the techies and developers watching. Let's take a quick peek behind the curtain. We've seen these nice, simple apps, but how are the services that power them actually built? It's actually a lot simpler than you might think. So, developers build these Odata services in just two main steps. First, they create something called a resource provider. The best way to think about this is like writing the menu for a restaurant. It just defines what data you can get. Then, second, they create a resource handler. And this is like the waiter who takes your order and brings you the specific food, or in this case, the specific data that you ask for. And this is basically what it looks like in the development environment. Over on the left, that's the menu being created. That's the resource provider. And on the right, that's our waiter, the resource handler. We're not going to get into the code, but this just gives you a little feel for how these powerful but simple apps get built. Okay, let's zoom back out. We've seen the old way, we've seen the new way, and we've peeked at the tech. So what's the bottom line here? Why does all of this really matter for you or for your business? The Fiori advantage really comes down to four key things. It's simple, so there are fewer errors and you spend less time training. It's role-based, which means less clutter and you get your work done faster. It's coherent, so everything looks and feels the same, which is nice. And it's responsive, meaning it works perfectly on your computer, your tablet, or your phone. Ye concept bilkul game changer hai.
At the end of the day, it all just comes back to this one simple but really powerful idea. SAP Fiori breaks down these big transactions into several discrete apps suiting the user roles. It's a huge shift from focusing on the system to focusing on the person using it. So, SAP Fiori did a lot more than just give an old system a facelift. It completely reimagined the experience of using business software. And it kind of leaves us with one big question to think about. What if all the software we had to use for work was actually a joy to use?